A staggering $2.3 trillion in American home equity is vanishing as we speak. It turns out the so-called Texas miracle was built on a shaky foundation. And now, we're seeing it all start to crumble. All right, here's the information we promised. It turns out Warren Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway, quietly sold off $847 million of its Texas real estate investments between January and August of 2024. On top of that, his insurance companies stopped issuing any new policies in Texas way back in February. So when the most successful investor in the world gets out of Texas real estate, you have to ask, what does he know that we don't? Well, an internal memo from his company was leaked last month, and it said, the Texas housing market is fundamentally broken. It went on to say that climate risks, the tax system, and wild speculation have created a perfect storm. Their recommendation? Get completely out of the market within the next 18 months. Now for the second trouble spot, Katy. It's the energy sector's housing time bomb. You see, the town of Katy was practically built on oil money. But the oil business isn't what it once was. For instance, ExxonMobil let go of 1,900 workers in Houston in the third quarter of 2024. Make no mistake, this isn't just a small market correction. This feels more like a major financial shakeup. And since July, Chevron has cut its Texas workforce by 12%. Then you have Phillips 66, which closed down its Houston refinery, getting rid of another 800 positions. These weren't just any jobs. They paid around $89,000 a year, and they were the very backbone of Katy's housing market. So what happened? Sales of homes in Katy priced over $500,000 have dropped by 43% compared to last year. Meanwhile, the number of homes for sale in that same price range is up by 67%. Let's take the Williams family. Their $575,000 home has been sitting on the market for 127 days. They started by asking $575,000, then dropped the price to $525,000, and now they're thinking about going as low as $485,000. That's a $90,000 price cut, and they still haven't found a buyer. And why is that? It's because the people who would normally buy these homes also work in the energy industry and are worried about their own jobs. When a whole town's economy relies on one unpredictable industry, this is the kind of thing that's bound to happen. Let's start with Frisco, where homes that were worth $600,000 are now selling for as low as $450,000. And it's not just home sales. The rental market has taken a hit too, with high-end rentals down 23%. Folks who invested in rental properties are now feeling the squeeze from two different directions. You see, executives in the energy sector are hesitant to sign a $4,200 a month lease when they're not sure about their job security. And that starts a downward spiral. Fewer people are buying, which means more houses are on the market, driving prices down and leading to more foreclosures. But the number one spot on our list? Well, no one saw this coming. Number 1, Round Rock, Texas. The very heart of the housing downturn. This was the town that was never supposed to have problems. Round Rock was considered bulletproof. After all, it's home to Dell's headquarters, in the heart of Austin's Silicon Hills. It was seen as the safe suburban bet that could weather any storm. At its peak in April of 2022, the median home price there was $467,000. Coming in at number 10 is Frisco, a city with a population of 200,000, and the impact there has been severe. Today, that median price has fallen to $362,000. That's a staggering 22.5% drop. That means $105,000 in home equity has vanished for the average homeowner. And that's across 45,000 homes. In total, that's $4.7 billion in community wealth that has simply disappeared. But behind the numbers, the impact on people's lives is even more heartbreaking. A full 32% of people who bought homes in Round Rock between 2022 and 2023 are now underwater on their mortgages. This means they owe more on their loan than the house is actually worth, leaving them stuck in a financial trap. Take Sarah, for example. She bought her home for $445,000 back in March of 2022. Its value today is just $340,000. So she's $105,000 underwater, and she still has a mortgage balance of $421,000. If she wanted to sell, she would have to bring $81,000 in cash just to close the deal. So what caused this sudden collapse? It started with waves of layoffs in the tech industry. In just 6 months, the number of homes for sale has jumped by 40%. That's 2,400 extra houses flooding the market. Dell let go of 6,650 employees in February of 2024, who were earning an average salary of $95,000. Then, Apple cut its Austin workforce by 1,200 jobs. Tesla laid off another 2,100 workers from its facility there in Austin. And Facebook, or Meta, got rid of 900 positions in the Austin area. All told, over 11,000 high-paying tech jobs disappeared in just 10 months. These were the people paying between $2,100 and $320 a month for their housing. And just like that, 11,000 families suddenly couldn't make their house payments. Those bidding wars that had pushed home prices to unbelievable heights, they stopped almost overnight. You have to remember, people were paying $1 million for a 2,000 square foot house in a planned community. A lot of them paid in cash, selling off their stock portfolios right at the peak of the tech bubble. But here's the part you won't hear on the news. The builders are getting nervous. But what happens when the tech stocks crash at the same time you lose your job? It's a perfect storm. We're talking about a complete financial wipeout. The number of homes for sale has shot up 157% from its lowest point. In plain English, that's 2,100 more homes on the market than this same time last year. And you can tell builders are getting nervous with some of these desperate offers. They're giving away a free Tesla Model Y with the purchase of a home. They're paying 2 years of HOA fees, which is a $4,800 value. You can get interest-free financing for the first 12 months. And they're including $50,000 in design upgrades. These aren't just sales promotions. They're moves made out of sheer desperation. They're finishing up new houses faster than ever, only to see them sit on the market, completely empty, for months on end. But every time a house sells at a discount, it drags down the value of all the other homes. It creates a downward spiral. Lower sale prices lead to lower appraisals. Those lower appraisals then cause existing deals to fall through, and more houses flood the market. The cycle just gets faster and faster until the whole market caves in. But here's the question that should worry everyone. Is this spreading beyond these 10 suburbs? We're now seeing troubling signs in places like Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. Price cuts in neighborhoods that were once considered quote-unquote stable are up 89% since August. The average time a house sits on the market statewide has doubled in the last 8 months. New building permits are down 41%. It's clear the builders are running scared. But the most concerning trend of all? The cash buyers are disappearing. Just take a drive through any of the new neighborhoods. You'll see finished streets and beautiful new houses. But nobody is living in them. The share of cash sales has dropped from 31% of all deals to just 18%. When the wealthy investors with cash stop buying, markets tend to fall apart much faster. So what are the folks with the smart money doing? BlackRock cut its investments in Texas residential properties by 34% in the third quarter. Invitation Homes sold off 312 of its Texas properties in September alone. When the big institutional investors head for the door, the smaller investors aren't far behind. That's what triggers the kind of avalanche we're witnessing right now. So what led to this perfect storm brewing in the first place? The Texas housing boom was built on 3 fundamental falsehoods. Lie number 1 was that Texas has unlimited cheap land for growth. But the reality is, it's almost like a modern-day ghost town. But instead of tumbleweeds, you have mounting mortgage payments. The costs for infrastructure skyrocketed as the suburbs just kept expanding outward. Building new schools, roads, and utilities got incredibly expensive. So property taxes had to shoot way up just to cover all that expansion. Then there's myth number 2. No state income tax makes Texas affordable. But the reality is, property taxes in the Texas suburbs are now actually higher than the income taxes in most other states. And on top of that, you've got insurance costs that folks in other states don't even have to worry about. When you add it all up, the total cost of housing ended up being higher than in those so-called high-tax states. And what about myth number 3? Tech and energy jobs are a sure thing. Well, the reality is a different story. It turns out both of those industries are incredibly unpredictable. Massive layoffs could wipe out the job market almost overnight. A full third of all the homes for sale have had their prices cut by anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000. You see, the Texas housing boom wasn't built on a solid foundation. It was all based on speculation. Super low interest rates made it seem like anyone could afford a new home. People were buying houses they couldn't actually afford if the rates were normal. So when interest rates went back to normal, the whole house of cards came tumbling down. But here's the part that nobody seems to be talking about: the domino effect. The local businesses in these suburbs are now failing, and fast. Restaurants, little shops, local services. They all depend on people's home equity. When that home equity disappears, people just stop spending money. Then you see job losses that go way beyond just the tech and energy sectors. School districts are facing huge budget problems as families move out and enrollment goes down. Suburbs in Texas, the ones everyone thought were completely safe, are now seeing prices drop faster than they did during the 2008 crisis. Now that's not a simple market adjustment. That's a sign of people starting to panic. And all those empty neighborhoods can unfortunately become magnets for crime and neglect. It becomes a downward spiral that just feeds on itself and is nearly impossible to stop. Now, do you remember what I promised? That at the 18-minute mark, I'd show you that secret document? Well, here it is. It's an internal analysis from the Federal Reserve, dated March 2024. The title is Systemic Risk Assessment, Texas Suburban Housing Markets. And the key finding says, extreme vulnerability to interest rate normalization. It goes on to recommend enhanced monitoring of the Dallas, Austin, and Houston suburban markets. And this is the kicker. Risk of contagion to the broader Texas economy, high. They knew this was coming. They just sat back and watched it all happen. But they couldn't risk stopping it without crashing the entire national economy. Take Jennifer, for example. She bought her home in Frisco back in March of 2022 for $580,000. Last month, she had to list it for just $490,000. So it seems they let the Texas suburbs become the canary in the coal mine. So what's the real toll this is taking on people? Let's look at the Rodriguez family. They bought their home in Round Rock for $395,000 back in 2022. This past February, Carlos lost his job at Dell, while his wife Sandra works for the local school district. Their family's income plummeted from $87,000 a year down to just $31,000. Their house is now worth about $305,000, but they still owe $371,000. That leaves them $66,000 underwater, with an income that just can't cover the mortgage. The bank is scheduled to start foreclosure proceedings in 37 days. Their children are about to lose their home, their school, and all their friends. And this family story is just like 8,400 others facing the very same situation. After 45 days on the market, she's had 0 offers, not a single one. And this is in a place that used to be the hottest real estate market in the country. For them, the American dream has turned into an American nightmare. But where some people see hardship, others see an opportunity. So-called vulture funds are circling these Texas suburbs like sharks. They are waiting for a wave of foreclosures to buy up homes for pennies on the dollar. Apollo Global Management, for example, raised $2.1 billion to buy troubled Texas real estate. Cerberus Capital set aside $890 million for what they're calling Texas Opportunities. Their plan is to convert these neighborhoods into massive rental communities. The very same families who lost their homes will end up paying rent to live in their old neighborhoods. This is just a way to pull wealth from hardworking families, disguised as an economic recovery. But it's important to remember, not every Texas suburb is facing this fate. On average, a house now sits on the market for 75 days. Just 18 months ago, it was selling in 2 days. Some communities have qualities that give them a layer of protection. Things like a wide variety of local jobs, reasonable property taxes, and a stable insurance market. Think of older, established neighborhoods, where home prices have stayed sensible. These are the places that didn't get caught up in all the wild speculation. We're talking about towns with strong local businesses and residents who have put down deep roots. But finding these safer places takes some real homework. Most real estate agents aren't going to tell you the whole story. They only get paid when they make a sale, no matter what the market is actually doing. The banks approve your mortgage based on your income today, not on the reality of the market tomorrow. And insurance companies have a habit of hiding big rate hikes until after the sale is final. And what about affordability? It's the worst it's been in 20 years, which means 89% of families simply can't afford to buy a home here anymore. The entire system seems set up to profit from your financial struggles. So how can you keep yourself safe in a situation like this? First things first, try not to buy when prices are at their absolute highest. You see, when prices double in just 3 years, that's often risky betting, not real growth in value. The second thing to remember is to look at the total cost of owning a home, not just the mortgage payment. Things like property taxes, insurance, and upkeep can sometimes cost more than your mortgage. Third, it's smart to make sure your income is stable, even if the economy takes a downturn. We've seen that jobs in tech and energy can be a bit shaky, while work in essential services tends to be steadier. A fourth good practice is to have 12 months of your total housing expenses set aside in savings for emergencies. And that means everything related to the house, not just the mortgage payment. Now the builders are trying to fight back, but they're resorting to some pretty desperate measures. And a fifth tip, never max out your credit line to buy a house. Banks will often approve you for a much larger loan than you can comfortably handle. But what if you're already caught in one of these suburbs, where the market is going down? One option is to simply walk away and let the bank take back the house through foreclosure. It will certainly ruin your credit, but it frees you from a situation that's sinking you financially. Another choice is a short sale, where you convince the bank to let you sell the house for less than you owe. That still harms your credit, but it's not quite as damaging as a foreclosure. A third idea is to rent out your house and move somewhere else. That rental income can help cover the mortgage while you work on getting back on your feet. A fourth possibility is to ask your lender if they can modify your loan. For instance, they're offering 4% interest rates, while the banks are charging closer to 7.5%. They might give you more time to pay or lower your payments, but you'll still owe more than the house is worth. And the fifth option is to just wait it out and hope the market turns around. But based on what's happened in the past, a recovery like that could take 8 to 12 years. The truth is, none of these are good options. That's the unfortunate reality of these market bubbles. The folks who did well either bought long before the boom or wisely stayed on the sidelines. The people who lost out were the ones who believed the hype and bought right at the very top. But here's what's truly concerning. This same pattern is starting to show up elsewhere. The suburbs around Phoenix are showing similar signs of trouble. The number of homes for sale in Las Vegas is exploding, and Florida's insurance crisis is spreading. This downturn in Texas is really a warning sign for the rest of the country. To do that, the builders are losing around $30,000 on every single home they sell, just to get them off their books. Our changing climate is making it impossible to get homeowners insurance in whole regions of the country. Working from home means fewer people are looking for those pricey houses in the suburbs. And as interest rates climb, it's showing that many people are carrying too much debt. The whole idea of the suburban American dream just seems to be broken. We built these huge neighborhoods that counted on cheap gas, easy-to-get loans, and stable weather. As it turns out, all three of those things proved to be wishful thinking. The suburbs in Texas were just the first to run into trouble. But other areas are sure to follow as the real situation starts to sink in. So the question isn't if this is going to spread, it's where and when. People with smart money are already getting ready for what's coming next. So you have to ask yourself, when these billion-dollar companies are losing that kind of money, what do you think is going to happen to the value of your home? They're looking at city areas with different kinds of jobs and that are better prepared for climate change. They're also looking at communities where you can walk to things, which saves on transportation costs. And of course, housing you can actually afford without taking on a mountain of debt. As I promised back at the 27-minute mark, where are these savvy investors actually buying? That's a great question, and the answer might not be what you'd expect. The big institutional investors are buying up rental properties in those troubled Texas suburbs. They are banking on a generation of people who lost their homes becoming renters for good. but they're getting these properties at a 40 to 60% discount from the highest prices. That way, they can offer affordable rent and still make a healthy profit. It's a business plan that capitalizes on the financial misfortune of others. The ninth city on our list is McKinney, which I'm calling the golden handcuffs capital of Texas. But for individual investors, the opportunities look a bit different. Think about the established suburbs on the East Coast with steady jobs, or cities in the Midwest with affordable homes and growing tech industries. There are also communities in the Mountain West that have climate advantages and plenty to do outdoors. These places offer a good chance for growth and value without all the risky speculation. But most Americans simply don't have the option of just picking up and moving. They're held in place by their jobs, family ties, and financial situations. For them, this crisis amounts to the destruction of wealth that took families years to build. The value in their homes, which took decades to build, was wiped out in just a few months. College funds have vanished. Retirement dreams have been shattered. Over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you the 10 areas that are at the very center of this downturn. Here's why. 67% of homeowners there have a mortgage rate around 3%, but today's rates have jumped to 7.8%. The impact on our society goes much deeper than just the real estate market. When a community is struggling financially, extreme political ideas can really take hold. That sense of community just falls apart when neighborhoods start to empty out. And you see a real rise in mental health struggles when money gets tight for everyone. What we're seeing is the fabric of suburban American life starting to unravel. But there's another side to this crisis that most people don't quite see. The finances of our towns and cities are crumbling, right along with home values. You see, property taxes are what pay for our schools, police, fire departments, and roads. So when home prices plummet, the money for these essential services just dries up. This creates a downward spiral. Services get worse, which makes property values fall even more. On a $400,000 home, that's a difference of $1,400 every single month. You start seeing schools close, police take longer to respond, and roads fall into disrepair. The decline of these suburbs just starts to pick up speed. Take the Round Rock Independent School District, which just announced major budget cuts. Even with higher tax rates, their income dropped 18% because of lower property values. They are cutting 127 teaching positions and closing 2 elementary schools. The very same excellent schools that once drew families in are now disappearing. This puts these suburbs at a serious long-term disadvantage. Even when the housing market eventually bounces back, the damage to the community's foundation remains. It can take decades to rebuild people's trust in their local schools and government. But the news media completely misses this deeper story. What that really means is, if you sell your home, you can't afford to buy another one anywhere in Texas. They focus on the struggles of individual families, not on the fact that the whole system is failing. They'll blame the ups and downs of the market instead of the fundamental problems with the setup. They tell everyone to just be patient when the entire model is broken beyond repair. The uncomfortable truth is that this kind of suburban sprawl was never built to last. We built communities that needed to grow constantly just to stay afloat. The moment that growth stopped, the financial house of cards collapsed. No amount of government help can fix the fundamental math of the situation. But you can bet politicians will try anyway, usually making the problem worse. They'll start stimulus programs that just create new bubbles in other parts of the country. They'll give out tax breaks that encourage even more of this unstable development. Take Mike and Susan, for example. They're stuck. Their mortgage is $1,850 a month. But to buy that very same house today, it would cost them $3,200. And they'll give bailouts that reward risky behavior while punishing those who are responsible. This cycle is bound to repeat itself until we Americans finally learn our lesson. But learning means we have to admit some things that are tough to swallow. Owning a home doesn't always build your wealth. Sometimes it can tear it down. Just because a house is bigger and out in the suburbs doesn't automatically make it a better investment. And low interest rates shouldn't be an excuse to buy a bigger house than you really need. The market doesn't always go up. Sometimes it comes crashing down, and hard. Learning these lessons the hard way through your own experience can cost you dearly. But you can learn them for free just by watching the mistakes other people make. What's happening in the Texas suburbs is a perfect example of what not to do. They're basically financial prisoners in their own home. Don't get caught up in all the hype, and don't assume things will keep going the way they have been. Don't borrow every last penny the bank is willing to lend you. Don't forget about the total cost of ownership. And don't buy in a town where the economy relies on just one industry. These same ideas don't just apply to real estate. They're true for any kind of investment you make. But a lot of people won't learn because facing the truth is just too painful. It's always easier to blame someone or something else than to look at your own bad choices. People will blame the Fed, or the politicians, or Wall Street. But they'll never blame the person who paid $500,000 for a house that was only worth $200,000. And that way of thinking is exactly why this whole cycle just keeps repeating over and over. It might be a different place or a different investment, but it's the same old gambling mentality. And they're not alone. 23,000 other families in McKinney are in the exact same boat right now. So that brings us to the big question. What's going to happen next? This situation in Texas is a long way from being over. We're really just at the beginning of a collapse that could last for several years. We haven't even seen the worst of the foreclosures yet, and bank failures are on the way. The small local banks that have all their money tied up in Texas real estate will probably be the first to go. It's going to get even harder to get a loan, which will just make this downward spiral move faster. But the financial damage won't just stay in Texas. It's going to spread much wider. Think about construction jobs, real estate agencies, and all those home improvement stores. And then there are the furniture stores, appliance shops, and moving companies. Whole industries that depend on people buying things for their suburban homes are going to shrink. This has created a hidden crisis. People are forced to stay put in a market that's anything but stable. The ripple effects from all this will be felt in every part of our economy. But you know, a crisis also opens doors for those who are in the right position. Younger folks who stayed out of the bubble can now find homes at affordable prices. Investors with cash on hand can pick up rental properties for a whole lot less. Entrepreneurs have the chance to start businesses that help communities that are struggling. The trick is to see the opportunity when everyone else is just seeing a disaster. But you have to be ready for it, both with your money and in your mindset. That means having cash saved up, a steady income, and the patience to wait for the market to hit rock bottom. It also means having the self-control to buy when everyone else is selling in a panic. Most people just don't have these qualities, and that's why these cycles keep happening. But what happens when something like a job loss forces these families to sell, no matter what? This housing meltdown in Texas is going to make the next generation of real estate millionaires, but only for the ones who really understand how the game is played. We've covered a whole lot of ground in the last 30 minutes. We've gone from the oversupply in Frisco all the way to the complete collapse in Round Rock. We've talked about everything from Warren Buffett getting out to the warnings from the Federal Reserve, from the heartbreaks of individual families to the breakdown of the entire economic system. And the story keeps changing every day as new information comes to light. But the basic pattern is clear. All this speculation is what creates these bubbles. And bubbles always pop. When they do, the aftermath can really tear communities apart. You know, this isn't the first housing crisis America has ever had to face. In McKinney, 34% of the workers are in tech and finance, two industries that are shedding jobs left and right. And it won't be the last, but this one might be the most concentrated in one particular area. It was also the most predictable for anyone who was paying attention to the basics. The warning signs were there for everyone to see, years ahead of time. You had runaway home prices, and the cost of a house compared to what people earned was getting out of control. People were gambling on houses, putting hardly any money down. They were building way more houses than there were new people or new jobs to fill them. Local governments had gotten used to all that extra money coming in from property taxes. Anyone who looked at these facts with a clear head could see what was going to happen. But people would rather believe a good story than face the hard numbers. We all like to believe this time it's different, even though it never is. So when they have no choice but to sell, they'll have to take a huge loss just to avoid foreclosure. And the suburbs in Texas are learning that lesson the hard way. But this is a lesson that anyone can learn, if they're willing to listen. Don't let hope cloud your judgment, and don't confuse gambling with smart investing. And never assume that prices are only going to go up. These basic principles apply to everything: stocks, bonds, crypto, and real estate. The investment might change, but human nature always stays the same. Every single bubble is fueled by greed, fear, following the crowd, and simple denial. But patience, careful thinking, and going against the grain is how you profit from every crash. The housing meltdown in Texas is a perfect case study in how people behave with money. You should study it closely because the next bubble is already starting somewhere. Stick with me for the first 6 minutes and I'll tell you which billionaire just sold off all of his Texas properties. Coming in at number 8 is Cedar Park, where property taxes have become a devastating blow to homeowners. Your financial future really depends on seeing it before it pops. But don't just be a bystander. You need to take action to protect yourself. Build up a rainy day fund. Find different ways to bring in income. Avoid borrowing too much, and really understand what it costs to own something. These ways of playing defense with your money are more important than any fancy offense. Simply surviving a bubble is much more important than trying to time it perfectly. The families who lost so much in those Texas suburbs weren't foolish or lazy. They were hardworking people who simply believed what the experts told them. We're talking about real estate agents, mortgage brokers, financial advisors. All of them had a financial reason to encourage people to take big risks. Get this. In 2021, the tax bill was $4,200. By 2023, it was $7,100 for the very same house. That's a 69% jump. Not one of them warned about the downside, because optimism is an easy sell. The lesson here is to never fully trust advice from people who get paid based on your decision. Do your own homework. Get a handle on the fundamentals for yourself. Base your decisions on cautious, common sense assumptions. Always have a plan for what you'll do if things go wrong. This way of thinking would have saved thousands of families in Texas. And it's what can save you from the next crisis, which is sure to come. Coming up next, we investigate. Is Phoenix rising, or is it about to get burned? The suburbs in Arizona are showing the very same signs of stress we saw in Texas. We're talking extreme heat, water shortages, and insurance companies pulling out. The Gonzalez family just received their new assessment. The home they bought for $320,000, it's now valued at $495,000. And on top of that, its tech industry is packed into one area even more than Austin's. So is the housing market in the Southwest about to be the next domino to fall? We're going to take a look at the 8 Arizona suburbs that are most at risk, and we'll also share the climate data that insurance companies would rather you didn't see. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on this very important breakdown. Please share this video with anyone you know who's thinking about real estate in Arizona. The warning signs are everywhere, if you just know what to look for. Protecting your financial future depends on staying ahead of these changes. Until next time, do your own research, ask questions, and be prepared for what's to come. The housing trouble we saw in Texas was just the beginning. This means their property taxes shot up from $3,800 to $5,900, seemingly overnight. The next downturn is already underway. The question is, will you be ready for it? Suddenly, they can't afford the taxes on a house that was perfectly affordable when they bought it. And this isn't just happening to 1 or 2 families. This is a systematic problem that's tearing communities apart. Because of this tax shock, 41% of the residents in Cedar Park are now thinking about moving. But here's the real kicker. Even if they sell, they're still on the hook for this year's massively inflated tax bill. They're caught between a rock and a hard place, facing financial ruin either way. And you know, even with all this extra tax money coming in, the school districts are already planning budget cuts. Then, at the 18-minute mark, I'll show you a key document that suggests this was no accident. Next up at number 7, Leander. It's another casualty of these tax hikes, and the problem is spreading like wildfire. It's the same story here, but the numbers are even worse. The average tax increase has been 73% in just 18 months. Take Maria, a local nurse. She's now paying an extra $920 every month just for her property taxes. That adds up to $11,000 a year. It's like taking a 15% pay cut she never saw coming. But here's the most crushing part. While her taxes have skyrocketed, the actual value of her house has gone down. So she's paying top dollar taxes on an asset that's losing its value. And be sure to stick around because what we reveal at the 6-minute mark about a certain billionaire will absolutely shock you. At number 6, we have Little Elm, where it feels like the insurance companies have declared war on homeowners. In 2022, insurance was $1,200 a year. Now, in 2024, it's $3,600 for the exact same coverage. That's a 200% increase. And that's if you can even find a company willing to insure you. And if you stay until minute 27, I'll reveal the one suburb where savvy investors are still buying. For instance, State Farm completely stopped writing new policies in Little Elm back in September. Then Allstate followed suit in November, and Farmers was gone by January. Now, families are being pushed into the state's high-risk insurance pool, costing them $8,000 a year. That's an extra $667 every month just to avoid complete financial disaster. The Martinez family had to go 8 months without any insurance, which is technically illegal, but for them, it was a financial necessity. A single bad hailstorm could have wiped them out completely. So here's the real story. Climate change is making Texas a place that's just too risky to insure. These insurance companies have information we don't, and they're pulling out for a good reason. What do they know about the next 5 years that the rest of us don't? At number 5, we have Prosper, which is facing a perfect storm of all 3 disasters. But first, let's start with a question you really need to consider. What if your home is next? You've got high taxes, unaffordable insurance, and way too many houses for sale. It's a triple whammy. In a town of just 30,000 people, there are 574 homes on the market. That's a 19-month supply. A normal, healthy market has about a 4 to 6 month supply. 19 months is a sign of collapse. Take the Chen family. They bought their home for $445,000 back in 2021. Today, the best offer they've gotten is $320,000. They would lose $125,000, not to mention closing costs. And they still owe $410,000 on their mortgage. That means they would need to bring $90,000 in cash to the table just to sell their own house. This is the situation for 31% of homeowners in Prosper who bought their homes after 2020. And at number 4, Pflugerville. This town is ground zero for the big tech bust. When the tech bubble in Austin burst, Pflugerville was hit with the fallout. Amazon let go of 2,300 workers in Austin this past March. Meta cut another 1,800 in April. The shocking part is that 82% of homeowners in these areas have no idea they're already underwater on their mortgages. And Tesla has reduced its Austin workforce by 14% since January. These weren't minimum wage positions either. The average salary was about $127,000. When people with high incomes lose their jobs, the market for more expensive homes is always the first to crash. And it crashes hard. In Pflugerville, the number of sales for homes over $500,000 has dropped by 34%. But here's the crisis nobody talks about. Those were the same people buying everyone else's homes too. When the top of the pyramid falls, the entire structure comes crumbling down. Take Brad, a former engineer at Apple. He went from a $140,000 salary to being unemployed overnight. But the mortgage on his $520,000 house doesn't care if he's been laid off. Number 3 is Pearland, a place where insurance companies have simply packed up and left. Back in 2017, Hurricane Harvey cost insurance companies $19 billion in Texas alone. Every 3 days, another 400 families are waking up to find their American dream has turned into a financial nightmare. Then, Hurricane Beryl in 2024 added another $2.7 billion to the total. The insurance companies have made a decision. Doing business in Texas just isn't worth it anymore. And the result? 1.2 million Texans found themselves without homeowners insurance in 2024. In a place like Pearland, the average insurance premium shot up from $1,500 a year to $4,200. That's an extra $225 a month for the very same policy. For one family, the Johnsons, their total house payment went up by 47%, just from the insurance increase alone. But that wasn't the end of it. Their mortgage company is now demanding they get separate wind and hail coverage. That adds another $2,100 a year, bringing their total insurance bill to $6,300. So now they're shelling out $525 every month just to insure a house that's actually going down in value. Stick around because at the 6-minute mark, we're going to reveal the billionaire who saw this collapse coming.